Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Lilith, yes, you have once again returned to the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. I always do appreciate our collaborations. Yet I must attend to something real quick. I am feeling pretty weak. Much better. I do feel revamped and full of nutritional value. It is important to make sure to be well slept and full of nutrients before hunting the Dogman. Without further ado, Lilith and I are going to walk into the darkness.
You know, one of the things that gets me, Kenna, is when you've been in the business as long as you and I, you've seen hoaxes that came out years ago that are now trending again on Twitter. And we were talking in Messenger, weren't we, about the Gable film, as they call it.
So bad. I've actually recently been introduced to a new theory too, potentially, about how Ape Canyon was hoaxed, just in regards of them not wanting people to come up into that area to hunt. Don't get me wrong, there were other Sasquatch sightings that have gone there, hence the name Ape Canyon. Yet Jody Cook and some other people that I value their opinions have some really interesting thoughts on that and plugged some pretty good holes into that story.
Right.
Yeah.
It's people, I've got to be honest, I believe some people like to be conned. You know, like yes. New clothes.
They love it. Yeah, just like drama. Yeah. And I don't know, some people like to always watch these drama-filled shows, but they claim they don't like drama, but they're watching Grey's Anatomy. It's like, okay.
Us humans, we like a tribe. And
yes, of course.
We like a tribe, don't we? And part of that tribe is like cheering your tribe members on. So I get 1,000. I get it, you know. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Gable film for me, when I first saw that, I shot back in my seat. Because when he comes running out of that grass with that ghillie suit thing on him, he looks like a monster. But he's as we say in England, his ass ends up. It's the wrong way for a bear.
Yes.
Wrong way for the dog. And when the guy who's made the hoax goes onto mainline media and says, I made that, and that is a hoax.
But yeah, it's still real, right?
Did it make it onto TikTok in 2024?
Oh, TikTok's the worst. Is that where we're all getting our resources now, apparently? I mean, it's saddening when I go online and I actually look at people that project the truth and such, and then you go to people's reaction channels and people's TikTok channels, and they're literally spewing out crap. Yet everyone's like chiming in with the likes and this is amazing. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, all you're doing is making this puddle so much murkier for everybody else to actually have somebody with credence sit down and want to interact with you because you're sitting here flying up with TikTok. I mean, the Gable film, like I said, was debunked when I was 11 in high school on Monster Quest. I'm pretty sure season 2 American Wolfman, they literally rip RIP that film. Good night. And everyone's still, like I said, that gentleman that chimed in on my page saying the only thing that's fake about that is the person that created that. Well, wait a second. Doesn't that mean the whole thing is faked? And also, the guy has already admitted to it. He made a round 2, which both of the videos look honestly faker than, like I said, a 4-year-old Smurf sighting by my niece. It's so bad. And when you actually see the teeth come up, it's legit a mask. And look at how any animal moves. I mean, whether it's a wolf, a regular dog, a bear, anything on 4 legs does not move as sloppy as that. And let's be real. Are you really going to sit there with your camera when this thing's like 20 yards just booting towards you? I mean, if that doesn't scream fake, I'm not really sure what does. Because like you said, when you had your encounter, you just tossed your friend out of the way. Another girl that I spoke to down in the LBL that was recording something, the sun said she heard weird things and it pops up out of the bush. She just chucks her phone and boots and goes back to get her husband. And when they came back to the area, her phone was still there, which is how she re-got it. But it wasn't like she was just like, what the hell? Whether it was fake or not, someone hoaxing her, she still had that reaction of, I'm out of here. So why is this guy in the Gable film just legit sitting there? And I mean, we've seen the old snow machines broken down. Like I said, I'm just baffled that we are all, not us, but people are still throwing around hoaxes. It's terrible.
I have a lot of YouTube friends, and over the years, I've met lots of people that live in like Alaska, BC, Canada, those kind of areas. And when they buy a parcel of land, sometimes there will be, the owner will have just left because you can't haul things out. It costs you money. And they get side-by-sides, boats, canoes, whatever's left on that property becomes yours because you bought that parcel. So to me, I thought, well, that makes perfect sense because they're being fitted for the time. That's why he's probably doing it.
And he used an old camera too that he said he got at like a yard sale. And he also put that video in at a yard sale as well to try to bamboozle people. I'm just a journalist. Like, why am I able to piece this together like a puzzle? I mean, I'm so baffled.
We've lost the art of critical thinking is the real problem, Kenny. We have lost the art of critical thinking. If I see a photograph and it's really well lit, I think that's been lit for shot. You know, I work in TV and I can tell that they're lighting it from below to get those canines, to get that shine skin.
I mean, look at a trail cam with just a deer or a fox. I mean, you can tell what it is. Yeah, it doesn't have these elongated, or it's perfect, where it literally looks like it's just posing for a picture. Come on now. I mean, no wild animal for the most part will just pose. I mean, I can get my squirrel when she's waiting for a peanut to be like, but I mean, it's because she's waiting. Yes.
I mean, I've got to be honest, the Ape Canyon thing interests me because I've followed Jody Cook for a really long time. I have a lot of respect for the guy because I remember when he was setting up the North American Dogman project and he was like, I was doing in England, he was like, no, we've got to collect these reports. We can't just keep letting them go into oblivion because there's actual scientific data within these. And we need to take that and map that account so we can see if there are any patterns. I mean, the guy's a born genius, I've got to be honest with you. It's the best way to research, I think, because you can't remember all of the cases.
No. It's really important, too, because I actually ran into that before I started documenting things. I had all kinds of stuff in my mind. And just over the years, I had written down, just literally plugged away everywhere. And then when Shane and Jody recruited me to come on board, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should put this all in one spec. And that's what I tell people is what I've done is I have my own research. I have Jody's research. I have Linda Godfrey's research. I have your research. So if something happens in regards to myself or anybody else, it's collected, it's documented, and it can be built off. It can be shared with other individuals. And that to me is the point of what we all should be doing is, as you said, preserving people that have the quality research and making sure that you can build off it, because it's like in the past, Dogman's just pretty much fallen through the hands of time when it comes to history. Yet we have people back in 290 BC, such as Herodotus and Alexander the Great, speaking of this. Last time I checked, Alexander the Great pretty much was hellbound and hell content on conquering and becoming pretty much a god in his mind. So why would this guy be sitting here hoaxing about dog-headed people coming down from the mountains and either fighting with them or against them? Why in 2021 in Iraq, when Jody was over there, why are local villagers speaking about dog-headed people that come down and sometimes trade with the merchants? Like, Where does this come from? What is this merchant in the middle of Iraq, a war-torn place? What does he gain from that? I mean, he's not getting to come to America afterwards. He's not getting paid for that. He's literally, or she is literally just sharing information, and there is no clicks or likes for them. They're literally in the middle of the desert. Why did that come up? Why was that stated?
They need to get the story out there. I don't think people realise the history of werewolf or wolf-headed men within the UK. In Ireland, the very first, one of our very first gods was called Aratek, depending on how you pronounce it. And he was a wolf-headed man. He had 3 daughters that married wolf-headed men, you know. So, but how do the natives in Ireland in the 1st century have a similar tale to an American tribe in the Métis Indians in Canada when there was no global communication?
What about the Dogman tribe up in Canada as well? I'm not sure if they're still actually a indigenous tribe, but when they were around, it was reported that they were ancestors from dog-headed men as well, the Dogman tribe up in Canada. Like you said, it's definitely interesting, and there's just so much credence to it. I mean, you have the northern Indian tribes, the northern African tribes, the ones that live near the Greeks in Iraq. And if you look at those mountain ranges, they all do pretty much connect to each other in regards of there could be people or a race of individual hominoids that are up there living. And like I said, at the end of the day, why were the Greeks talking about this? Look at their history. They don't document things that aren't documented by other people. They don't really make fairy tales. They literally documented what happened and conquered. We are trying to become the best. That's it. They didn't have time for hoaxes. Same thing with Hitler in World War II. Why is Hitler sitting here hoaxing a video about a dog woman or a dog man that was actually supposedly terrorizing his group of SS? What does a man that's hell-bent on conquering the world, how does that do anything? How does that help? You're wasting your time. You're wasting your military assets. You're wasting your money. You're wasting all of that to make a hoax back in the 40s. Wait, what?
Exactly. And we also know the stories have come out of Poland and the southern Europe, the countries there, like Belarus, that kind of thing, where we're talking pre-war stories of children missing from the villages, being taken into underground bases and not ever appearing again. There's a story of a boy after the war, after the Second World War, in one of the forests in, I think it was Poland. And there were a lot of old army shafts and things like that that was still out there from the German occupation. And those, we have them here in the UK. They fill up with water eventually and they just become long, like a mine shaft, just full of water. And he went missing. He was playing in the woodlands with his friends and they all ran off home and he fell into this shaft and they didn't know. None of the kids really noticed that he hadn't come back with them. So it got to bedtime and then the parents realised this boy is missing. So they all go out on a hue and cry, can't find him. They do eventually find him in the morning and he's alive. And he said that a wolf put its head over the shaft and kept saying to him, don't go to sleep, stay awake. Stay awake, don't go to sleep. Yeah, in his own language. And when the humans were coming from the village, that wolf went off. Now, we're not talking 17th century, we're talking 1948.
Yes. Yeah, they do have a language which is reported that they yip and bark and use basically kind of a form of sign language. But the Greeks did, speak about how they were able to interact kind of by doing those sign language and understanding what it is that entity was trying to interact with them about.
Bad. I mean, you've worked different cases like I have. You've had quite a few coming in over the last 6 months. Some of them are absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
And others can be benevolent in a way, so a helpful way. And I don't think people realise that. They think it's all violent or all fairies, and it's not. That each unique case is different, isn't it? You've got the and the creature that you've seen. Tell me one that you've been working on in the last couple of months, because you've done some amazing ones.
Thank you. Now, I've been trying to get as much stuff out there as possible. I had a chance to speak to, I don't know if you've ever heard of Bobby Businger back in the Vidor, Texas case.
Right.
He was one of the first people to kind of interact with, at the time, what the media said was a werewolf. And he, 40 years later, has actually just been able to kind of speak about what went on. And he explains that it was this huge muscular guy that was howling and basically acting extremely strange. I kept banging on his house like so hard. It was shaking dishes and literally making pictures and stuff fall off the wall.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a pretty interesting case to talk to him about that. I documented that. And then I got to talk to Keith Williams about the 1982 London, Ohio werewolf incident, basically, where there was a gentleman that was a drifter that lived in an old cabin down behind two railroad tracks. And he ended up being found dead. And on the inside of the cabin, there was a ton of scratch marks and it smelled like wet dog. And there was literally no belongings in there. And there was a rumor that he had basically some sort of Nazi type ties, because at that point in time, there was a lot of drifters that were coming through. So that was pretty interesting. And then also just last week, I spoke to a friend up here that had an encounter in Shapley, Maine, which was some nightmare fuel, where a coyote was coming up at night, kind of limping towards his front porch. So he felt bad, but he didn't necessarily want to go right out. So he was trying to get his dogs to get away from the door to figure out what it was or how he was going to handle the situation. And as he turned the light off for a second, he said, as soon as he turned the light off, the coyote would put its foot down, looked behind it, and ran off. Then all of a sudden he saw about 6 to 8 feet above the ground, these huge, massive red eyes. Oh. So he seems to think that whatever this was, that the coyote was trying to lure him out and his dogs, so that when they stepped outside, it could potentially ambush them. He was totally caught off guard by that. And if you look at, there's numerous cases where they have been reported to travel in packs with coyotes, wolves. And if you also look at domesticated dogs, unfortunately, when I have my YouTube channel on in the background, sometimes when I'm working on things, I'll end up, I don't know, the algorithm will throw on some trail cam or house cam footage of some, I don't like to use this term, but bozo that decides to leave their dogs outside in an area where there's a ton of wolves and things. And you literally see either the coyote or the wolf, one come up and basically get the dog's attention. The dog goes down to try to play. They have 4, 5, 6, boom, 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 take them, pull them away. And a lot of people don't realize that domesticated dogs are looked upon as weak to wild animals.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yes. So if they're doing that to domesticated dogs, it's no different than potentially trying to lead you out or a child out as well. I've had a case in Maine where a woman said that she saw one of these dark black red-eyed dog creatures going like this to her child, trying to get him to come over and play with it, which is pretty interesting behavior. That's something you would expect from a human that has some sort of bad intention.
Most definitely. I've done those cases here in the UK as well, where I'm thinking of one instantly in Finland where she's on a swing playing and it's outside the house and mum's not got her eye on it, you can see it. And she literally ran into the house and put herself in the house. She said it was looking at her.
Yep.
Basically waiting for it to come back out again, kind of thing.
100%. I'm going to send you some more pictures recently that have been sent to me that are actually straight up hard to debunk. I mean, you see the muzzle, you see the pointed ears, and they're literally leaning out from behind the tree, and it looks like a werewolf from The Howling. No exaggeration. It's pretty hard to debunk that stuff. I mean, you have a lot of blur squatches and things that are quite obviously not quality. Yes, people, that's what drives me nuts is people don't understand is that our minds just piece together things we don't understand. So when you go outside, it's no different than with you. I could think you were driving by, be like, hey, that's Lilith. What's up? What's up? And then you drive by and I was like, wait, that's not her whatsoever. But your mind is piecing that together. So it's no different than looking outside and seeing a shadow. And because you're already nervous, you're like, oh, wow, that's a Dogman. Well, explain this to me. If this Dogman's 5 feet away from you in a truck and you're sitting in your truck with your window down recording it, what keeps you safe? These things are ripped off the side of an RV. So do you really think that sitting in your truck, if this is a real Dogman 5 feet away, it's not going to have some sort of potential negative interaction with you? It's just you're just safe? That doesn't make any logical sense to me.
No, it doesn't to me. And honestly, I've had witnesses say to me, well, when they've had an experience and then later on they'll say, will it come and get me? And I say, well, it already would have done.
Yes, that's exactly. It's no different than if you and I are walking through India. By the time you see the tiger, you're done. I mean, occasionally you get lucky and, your squad, hey, there's a tiger up there. But usually by the time you see a predator, kudos, good night. It's like with a great white shark. When you see the great white shark, you're done. There is or the giant snake. I mean, I don't know. People just seem to not understand that these are apex predators that specialize in ambushing. I mean, why do hunters get ambushed by grizzly bears when they're out in the woods all the time? A grizzly bear is a pretty large entity that makes a ton of noise if it wants to, yet it creeps up on you.
Yeah, it can be the quietest, most silent of things when it needs to be. That's it, isn't it?
Even a T-Rex recently, when they were looking at the way the T-Rex and its feet were set up, same thing. Such a large animal could walk very quietly when needed.
Apex predator. I mean, it's no different to a serial killer, is it?
No, exactly.
It's a hunger, and when they feel that hunger, they go into primal stance. Really,
yes, 1,000%. So,
and that's they're acting like they are, because that's like saying a dog's wrong for chasing down a rabbit. A dog's just being a dog.
Yeah,
just doing what it was made to do, and us humans put our kind of spin on it about, oh, that's cruel, or
that's why they did it. Yeah, trying to understand, but there really could be nothing behind it. It's super funny you just said that, because I have a huge theory about Portlock, Alaska, where if you look at that, no one ever 100% saw Sasquatch. They just saw large hominoid type figures in the forest. And at this point in time, you did have saber wolves up in there, and there's all kinds of other terminologies for indigenous type wolfmen or dogmen. And if you look at the way the people were ripped apart and torn apart and body parts everywhere, that's a dog behavior. That's no different than when your dog just rips apart its chew toys. And I've had another case where two little kids, basically this dog person was living in a cabin in the forest, and one of them had befriended it, and the other kid was mortified because when he went up to the cabin, literally there was just chew toys everywhere, just like a dog would do. If they didn't see the Sasquatch, they were ripped apart, thrown apart everywhere. That screams to me dogman behavior. And it's also like with Boggy Creek, when I dive into that stuff and you look at a lot of the reports, no one necessarily says they saw a Sasquatch. They say that they saw a hominoid type creature. So what if this hominoid was a dogman that had algae on it that was coming up out of the swamp? Why did this creature reach into the house to grab this man's wife while she was reading? That's dogman behavior. Why, when he got home, was he outside smoking a cigarette because his wife was mortified? Did this thing grab him off the porch and try to drag him into the forest, scared him so much that he literally ran through the screen door that was closed, cut himself up pretty bad, and had to go to the hospital? That, again, is dogman behavior and dogman type territorial aspects. So I think a lot of the potential legendary cryptid encounters are being mixed up.
Yeah, I would agree, because there's also the Gugwig, and that's kind of middle ground.
That's the baboon type of dogman form. Yes.
And I wonder how many of those reports, it's come up recently for me in the UK, because the gentleman who was talking about it has been a researcher for over 20 years. And when he described this creature moving off, and this was the stance of it, Kenny, it was like that as it ran. And we hear that so often in the canine creature.
Have you heard about the crawl? A ton of the cases I get, they say it's almost kind of, like when a child is learning how to crawl a little bit, but I mean, it's up. It's got that military crawl, but it's fast. The girl I spoke to in Auburn, there's been at least 6 or 7 type cases like that. I actually have a video from Mexico that I still can't debunk this, where a group of people are driving through the mountains. It seems like teenagers, and I don't know. It could be a llama, could be a large dog, hits the side of their truck. They hit it and it runs off. And you can see it's kind of got these pointed ears. So they get out, because if it was someone's pet, they didn't just want to drive off. And they're trying to call towards it. It's behind this tree, shaking the tree. Okay. And then it looks back at them and then crawls off in this weird crawl into the forest. And legit, that matches up with so many of the descriptions of how it moves. And that's not, it just didn't move like a human would move in that type of mannerism that quickly. Because if you look at the Gable film, it's a sloppy move. This thing looked very comfortable in that cloaking type crawl. And that's what I also try to explain to people. You got your werewolves and skinwalkers that are more of, if people want to talk about like the portals and the shape shifting, those are your skinwalkers. Those are your werewolf aspects. But when it comes to, the dogman, it's literally, like I said, a living entity, and they have tails, and they're doing these crawls where you can just tell it's a natural type motion, but it's so quick. Some people say they think of the predator type, like cloaking. Okay, that would be out of my realm a little bit. I would push that probably into the skinwalker type aspects. When I think cloaking, I think of just, Have you seen that video where, again, that idiot lets his dog off his leash and you see these two large ears? And once the thing gets up, it is a massive jet black looking potential dogman. And look how that was cloaking. Look at a tiger. Look at a house cat. Look at a wolf. They lay down, they push themselves to the ground, and you can see their ears. So to me, that would be cloaking, because yes, it's going to be hiding in the tall grass. It's going to be hiding in the brush. But when people, like I said, speak more of the predator type aspects, I think that's more of the portal hopping. And I mean, I'm aware of that. I do document that, but I specialize in Dogman. So I don't go out of my way looking for the skinwalker type werewolf interactions. But if you start talking to me and in my head I'm understanding this is what you're seeing, I'm still documenting it, but I just would potentially send you more in a direction of somebody like Ryan Tremblay that specializes in the
that's all you can. That we gatekeepers, you and I. So when these witnesses come to him, the worst thing we can do is tell them what they saw. So then you say, right, I don't know what you saw that day. I wasn't stood next to you. But these are all the possible theories.
After, yes.
Behind it, you know, when you do it like that kind of thing, and then that's up to them. I'm with you on this one. I think we don't really. The easiest analogy I can give is you don't find an Amazon tribe; they find you. You walk past them. You didn't. You know, they are masters of their environment. I've seen an 80-year-old woman who was part of a tribe in Brazil go up a tree like a 12-year-old boy.
Yes.
Because she'd done it every single day of her life.
You're so quick. Yeah, I've seen a Survivor Man tries to do it with his boots on. He's like, man, this hurts. And they're like laughing at him. And Survivor Man's a really good survivalist.
Yeah. The feet over generation had changed to be able to do that.
That's why I walk barefoot all the time. Yeah, as much as possible, because shoes and flat feet.
She was a master of her environment. She ate the right food. She did the right amount of exercise.
Yes.
Listened to her body, because that's what you did back then. Your natural rhythms. You weren't up for 15, 16 hours and then slept.
Yes.
We had 2 sleep patterns. That's what we did. And we move when the animals move, because we are primarily meat eaters.
And you got to save your energy. It's like I believe a tiger is only active 3 to 4 hours a day. The rest of the time it's just napping and sleeping, because, energy is precious. It's no different than any other animal. They take the path of least resistance. An animal's not going to specifically walk around something if they can cut across it. It's a waste of energy.
Exactly. I think that's where the rivers come in as well, me, Kenneth.
100%.
They're easy areas to navigate. There's not many humans on them at dusk and dawn or in the night.
Bears use rivers all the time. And I have at least 7, 8, 9 different cases of dogmen swimming in the water where people have seen them basically looking for shellfish. One couple was on a boogie board, and as they came around the edge of the island up in Canada, they saw what they thought was a potentially large black loud that was swimming, and they thought it was the people on the boat coming their way, dog. So they're waving them down. They're like, "Hey, your dog, your dog." But then as the boat got closer, the dog whipped its head towards them, and they knew it wasn't a dog anymore. It had like glowing eyes, and it was massive. And they said that the boat coming in spooked it, and it dove under, swam to the shore, got up, and walked off. I have another case where someone was sitting there fishing at night, and all of a sudden he felt like something was watching him. He looked up, and there was a dogman literally like 20, 30 yards away on a log floating across, looking at him. And he said that the dogman kept looking over to the grass beside it, almost like it was communicating or trying to get the attention of something else to ambush him from behind. And then you have another case of a couple just sitting on the beach, and they saw splashing, and right out of the water, this 6 to 8 foot dog type creature comes out, looks at him, goes back to what it's doing, looking for shellfish or fish, dives down, swims away, and gets up across the bank and just walks away.
I've taken a lot of cases where people speak about them in and around water. Some people believe they can go under the banks, and you learn something new every day. It was only about 3 months ago, somebody messaged me on YouTube and said, "Debbie, have you ever heard of them being, how did he put it? Hydrokinesis, so they can literally affect water in some way?" And I said, no, nobody's ever told me that theory before. So I had to look into it, and it's way back down against the ancient Greeks, that these dogman creatures can actually manipulate water in some way, which, I mean, I haven't done any research on it at all, Kenny. I've got so much going on, but it's an interesting thought, But
it is.
I think there's a section of them that are paranormal in some way, supernatural dimension. Like,
Yeah, I think those are the werewolf type skinwalkers, like I said, yes.
And then you've got your flesh and blood creatures.
Yes.
And then I think there's a section that we were talking about with Hitler and places like where human hybrids have been made.
I definitely think, too, a dogman isn't as smart as a werewolf / skinwalker. And the reason I say that is because the werewolf skinwalker aspect still has the human part of it. And I've seen them do a lot more nefarious, malicious type behaviors. Like our tracker believes he's being harassed by a skinwalker. I mean, it pisses on his deck, his car. It literally just goes out of its way.
Yeah, to piss him off.
Yeah, just to screw with him. And that's like human type behavior where a dogman, if you did piss it off, it might come back a couple times or rip your house up to, just like any other animal, to be like, hey, this is my territory. Yet they don't potentially
yeah, they don't.
Yeah, that malicious type behavior. And recently I've been introduced to another pretty interesting theory too about dogmen being controlled to an extent by Sasquatch, basically as if you and I have guard dogs, which is super interesting because I would have to say, what happens if you and I allow our dog to run around the neighborhood all the time and it's just terrorizing everybody and eating their trash, attacking people? Well, someone's going to knock on your door and take your dog away. Okay. So if they are being used as guard dogs, which would make sense. I mean, other animals that are smarter than other animals do things like that. There's birds that roll eggs out of nests and put their egg in there and then you raise their child.
Survival of the fittest.
You have the Martin Groves case where he did see Sasquatch with the dogman. But the question I would have to ask now is, when you look back in indigenous cultures, it's always been presumed that the Sasquatch is the protector of the forest. So if they are using dogmen now to kill people, we would have to literally completely reevaluate how Sasquatch are looked upon, which doesn't really make sense because the indigenous cultures all speak of them being guardians of the forest. And also, why do some people wake up to their horses having their manes braided? That doesn't seem like the malicious type behavior. Yet if they're using the dogs like that, or the dogmen, that is malicious type behavior. And you would think that Sasquatch would be smart enough to realize that if people keep on going missing throughout parks, it's just a matter of time before we're going to come looking for you. So then that makes you think, okay, well, are these basically just not as well trained dogs? Are they just doing their own thing? Basically, when the Sasquatch might be out doing whatever else it's doing, does the dog just run around and do whatever it wants until it's called back?
What if dogs are clever, and this is how humans ended up owning dogs? Dogs follow humans because humans leave food behind.
Yes.
If you're warm, they'll sort your wash out. Eventually,
that's how you're in front of wolves, just throwing scraps.
All of that will happen. But then what we've got, and you should take into consideration, those Native Americans who wrote about them all those years ago have been boxed off and put into these like really places where they suffer with depression, suicide.
Yep. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible, especially here.
That happens to Sasquatch. It can be that you've eradicated them so much and you've left them to this one square area
that they're pissed off.
Act opposite to how they would just to bloody survive.
Makes sense.
If my children were starving, I'd be a very different woman.
Oh, yes.
You'd think, well, all human beings are wonderful. No, they're not. And some beings can be enslaved. So there are times where even a Sasquatch could be slaved by a dogman. Do you get what I mean? Whatever the weaker is, the stronger one will survive. Yeah. So you've got all those variables playing in, and that's where multiple witness accounts come in, because we're picking like little bits out of the tapestry, and it's starting to come together now.
Yeah, like a puzzle. Yep.
Yeah, kind of like that. So that's what you do. People say to me, do you not get frustrated? And I say, no. Every new case that comes in is exciting.
Yeah, it's all super important. And that just falls back to the people wanting the creepypastas and wanting the overly exaggerated stories. The majority of those overly exaggerated stories, no names, they're fake. A lot of those ones that are, you have some pretty nightmare fuel ones that have been verified. I don't want to say names, but there's a lot of these infamous stories that people are throwing around that are supposed to be the most legit Dogman stories, that they're not. It literally sounds as if someone has been sitting here trying to write a script for Hollywood.
Some podcasters will pay. They actually pay a script writer. Because I'm a podcaster, you get approached by the script writers. you get approached by the guy who writes the algorithm to tell you which one of your reports is going over better and has made the best money. I decided a very long time ago, Meg, I'm only ever going to do it my way.
Me too. 1,000.
If I don't get anywhere doing it. And I remember saying to Mark, my husband, what do I do if I get hoaxed? And he said to me, if you've done everything you can to debunk it, and you honestly believe that this person's come to you in good faith, if they have hoaxed ever, that's on them.
Yeah, and honestly, it's okay to be hoaxed. All you need to do is, if you're hoaxed, is you just sit down and you correct what was incorrect and you move on. It's the people that dodge when they hoaxed and don't enunciate it and don't own it up. I mean, it's part of the game. For example, just because I have the potential Dogman evidence on Facebook, that's potential. There's going to be images that are removed into fake, and there might be some vice versa. That's the whole point of what's going on. So no, I wouldn't worry about that. I would just keep doing what you're doing. And if someone bamboozles you, it happens to the best of us. Yeah, it's part of that. I would just brush that off. Like I said, just own up. We make a mistake, you move on, and then you just put out the correct information to correct the mistake.
I think that's the best way of doing it, mate. I think there's times I've made mistakes, and there's times when I thought every structure in the woodland was Bigfoot, but that's how you learn. And if I hadn't have spent those years getting it wrong, I'd still be getting it wrong. Do you get what I mean? So this time
it's okay to learn.
Yeah, researchers will come to me and say, Debbie, I've had nothing. And this guy's on YouTube getting something week after week after week. And I said to him, well, they're the frauds.
Yes.
It doesn't happen like that.
The only reason I can put out as much stuff as I have is I have 516. Because it comes flooded in.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and I have 516 pages in my book that I can go through and make content out of. But like you said, I mean, these aren't all brand new cases from yesterday or today. They got a hold of me and they have a monster hunter that is hunting Dogman, and I'm just going to read this email. No, it doesn't work like that.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I would love to get you on for a live feed. I think I'd love to do a live feed just about Dogman and Dogman cases and just how different they are for each person. I've got a few witnesses who'd be happy to jump on and join.
Yeah, that'd be awesome too. I mean, I'm always down to help you out and collaborate with you. I pretty much right now I'm at the point where I'm only making time for individuals such as yourself and like Jessica Jones and people that have, tried to definitely help me out, because I have so much stuff that I've been, collectively working on, and I can always, how it is, time is valuable. So I make time for individuals that make time for me. Because
I'm in the same boat. I announced last week that I've gone into semi-retirement, and that really scared people that I were going. And I said to him, no, semi-retirement means for me that I can't be in 200 Facebook groups anymore. I have to leave that behind. There's 1 or 2 or 3 that I'm going to stay in my own group. I've got that much stuff coming in. I've got to concentrate on that. The witnesses always have to be priority number 1 with me.
Yes.
That I'm the person who gets a 2 o'clock in the morning phone call when they've seen something and they're terrified, That has to come before Facebook. So when I said to people, it's not that I've had an argument with somebody. It's just not my time anymore. I was there back in the day, and everything's set up now. People have got their own podcasts and their own group.
Yes.
They're all, well, that's what we're supposed to do. And then I'll go on and carry on doing what I'm doing. Because back in the day when I started, there wasn't anybody else. In America there was, but in the UK, nothing.
Yeah.
Not doing those things. So I had to spread myself a bit thin. But like now, I'm like, no, I know what I want to concentrate on, what makes me happy.
No, that's super, super, super important. And to be quite honest with you, I just have a Facebook group because it's a way that I can put Dogman stuff in there. I mean, Instagram doesn't have a way to do that. There's just not, even though I'm not a huge Facebook person, Facebook is still one of the larger social media platforms. So I'd say 7 out of every 10 people, maybe 8 have a Facebook. It's just a way to put it up there. But same thing. I spend the majority of my time on my YouTube and StarFox Radio, but I do just want an area where I'm able to upload images and
that's it. That's all I ever wanted it to be. But it's people add you as an expert, so you end up in all of these groups, and as the pings are coming in all day, you can't do your audio and you
Yep.
So it was just a matter of
Put your phone on airplane mode. That's what I do. So when I'm doing voiceovers, I'll throw my phone on do not disturb or airplane mode. And once I'm done, I mean, I know how that rolls. Like, for example, in a 35-minute video, sometimes I got to set up something to shock myself when I say the word because I cannot stand when I say I have to edit that out.
You have to take it out.
Yes, a 35-minute video the other night. It took me 3.5 hours just to get the specs the way I wanted. So I definitely understand that. And you can only do what you can do and just plug away. It's like I tell people, my YouTube right now still is under construction.
I'm going to put the links in anyway. People can check them out. Links to below.
Awesome. Thank you.
Videos. And obviously, me and you have collabed before anyway, haven't we? Yeah, so go find that.
That's like number 4, I think, 3 or 4. So.
Well, I'm going to bring us to a close now because both you and I are very busy people. But thank you for joining me, Kenny. It's been wonderful as always.
Thank you. The same thing.
To everybody else, I'll be back at the same time next week.
Thank you for everyone who stopped by the Fox Den tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. I do love all my creatures of the night, and if you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember, feed the algorithm.